From one user losing millions and saying bon voyage to his family, to another user losing everything and going into debt as a teenager, we're gonna go over the most devastating losses over the past year. Vital Traders is a TikToker who thought he could get rich trading options. Vital Traders recently graduated from college. He didn't have a 9-to-5, but he did have TikTok. And honestly, he was making some pretty good money from it. He said he started earlier that year and already made $100K in a short time frame. It seems like he's telling the truth, and he even posted a screenshot to back it up. Anyway, he threw most of his money into Robinhood and instantly started making wild trades. This may sound like it's coming out the blue, but he had experience making risky trades after getting in on Dogecoin's first major rally back in 2021. Vital Traders' portfolio fell by about 35K, which was more than half of what he had, but then it quickly shot back up to more than $100,000. He was up about 40K, but this didn't last for long, and the second crash was bigger than the first one, a lot bigger. With only $1 left in his portfolio, things are definitely looking rough. He still has to pay 20 to 25K in taxes on the money he made from TikTok. He has 13K in the bank, which is great, but still not enough to cover his taxes. He's currently looking for jobs and trying to continue the TikTok grind. He hasn't told his parents about this, since they think he's actually doing very well for his age. On the bright side, he doesn't have any major expenses since he lives with his parents, so hopefully he at least has enough money to cover his taxes when the time comes. Flash forward to the end of June and his Reddit profile is now deleted, so let's just hope things are going good for him. You might think the story of Vital Traders is crazy, but these losses get more and more devastating as we move throughout the video, so get ready. I Am Thalos is a user who put options trading before school, and so far it has not been working. When Dawn started causing major volatility in the market early on, I Am Thalos felt like there would be a huge spike up. Since he was so confident that the market wouldn't stay down for long, he did what any other reasonable investor would do and deposited all of his student loans into Robinhood. Not wanting to waste any time, he made his first trade at the very end of February. He bought $1,800 worth of SPY puts that expired over a week later, but he got a little scared and sold for a 10% loss 3 minutes later. Okay, not exactly off to a good start, but I'm sure things will pick up. On March 3rd, he bought $900 worth of 0 DTE SPY calls and once again quickly sold for a 40% loss 8 minutes later. Okay, he may have messed up these first two trades, but third time's the charm, isn't it? Half an hour later, he bought just under $1,000 worth of more 0 DTE SPY calls, and 5 minutes later he sold for a 34% loss. Usually after 3 strikes you're out, but for this determined trader, he was just getting started. Only 13 minutes later, he bought $800 worth of more 0 DTE SPY calls and sold for a 69% loss 2 hours later. I Am Thalos knew he wasn't a bad trader. He was just being held back by his stupid classes. He says he started skipping an early class frequently to make back the loss, but this backfired and his professor ended up failing him out the course. Well, at least he probably made his losses back, right? Well, with 80% of his school loans gone for the semester, he finally realizes that it's probably gone forever. MoistAd9060 went on an initially lucky trading spree, but things quickly turned for the worse. MoistAd originally started with 15K, but unfortunately the early part of his journey didn't really get posted to Reddit, which is actually okay, cause now we get to jump straight into the action. It was April and MoistAd's $15,000 portfolio was now worth a whopping $82,000. He 5x'd his money and was feeling on top of the world. Every single day, he bought $10,000 worth of 0 DTE SPY puts and he stuck to it. Spending $300,000 a month on 0 DTE SPY calls is a surefire way to early retirement. And MoistAd was making his way there pretty quickly. On April 10th, his portfolio grew to just under 150K. He was up 50% in a day, and he wasn't ready to sell his contracts just yet. He held on to all of these overnight and hoped for the best. Particular Base 3390 said, "Road to bankruptcy. Hope you aren't too attached to your kidneys." And Soulful Academics pointed out that he needed to chill out. MoistAd replied with, "Yeah, I realized I was a bit exposed when I took a 122K loss yesterday. Got saved today. Starting Monday, I'll chill." Good thing today was Thursday though. He still had another day of not chilling tomorrow. iChan San seemingly unironically says, "Where can I start?" Anyway, MoistAd went to sleep and got ready for his last day of wild trading. He woke up in the red, which is obviously never pleasant, but was only down 2.5%, so it wasn't really the end of the world. He opened some new 0 DTE Tesla puts and 0 DTE QQQ puts and closed his TQQQ calls. He was now full bear mode. He even made the prediction that QQQ would drop 2% that day. Well, by lunchtime, the market was still alive and well, and Moistad's portfolio was iffy at best. Down 22K for the day with only 12,000 in buying power left, he was hoping for a reversal quick. A few more hours went by and he was down another 16,000. QQQ finished the day up almost 2%, which is basically the opposite of what he predicted, and his portfolio was down $48,000. A lot of users talk trash, but Moistad told them to calm down. He's learning as he goes, and if he does say so himself, his year-to-date return is pretty darn good. Well, Monday rolled along, which meant it was time for him to chill out on all the ridiculous trading. Did he chill out? Let's find out. As of April 15th, he was down 153K over the past week. To top it all off, he wasn't going to cut any of his losses. He held onto all of these contracts through the night. Moistad may have cut his portfolio by about 2/3 from the peak, but he was still pretty motivated to reach his $1 million goal. In fact, he said that this would only delay the process by about 2 to 3 days. Except after that, Moistad stopped giving us updates. No more posts were made to WallStreetBets until he suddenly came back 50 days later with some pretty abysmal news. Moistad's portfolio went from 15 to 353K, then straight back down to 16K in 2 weeks. Moistad said, "Never thought I'd be making this post, but here we are. Within 2 weeks, I went from $300,000 to PDT violated, margin called, and spiritually humbled. I'm not gonna lie, I was considering launching a hedge fund. Called my dad, called my rich uncle. They were shocked, surprisingly supportive while I was winning, and started to discuss hedge fund possibilities. Turns out I wasn't a quant. I'm a changed man, but also a scared one, but it's okay. I started my true bull journey yesterday. Give me a month or two once I clear this PDT Scarlet letter, and I'll be back. Or not." This post was made on June 4th, so we'll see if Moistad ever gets his revenge and if his hedge fund comes to fruition. Shady Patel is a user who is willing to take out loans for what he thinks is an opportunity too good to pass up. On December 3rd, Shady Patel logged on to his American Express account and took out a whopping $20,000. He wasn't using this to pay bills or anything. No, he was using it for a much more important investment. Planet Labs had doubled in price over the past month, and he didn't want to miss out on once-in-a-lifetime gains. He booted up his portfolio and threw everything on the line, with 10.9K on shares and 9.3K on calls. As far as the shares go, he was a little bit safer, but the stock needed to jump quickly or else his calls would be dropping hard every day. As of June 14th, the stock has been extremely volatile, but actually is trading at a higher price than what he bought it for. His calls are a completely different story though. They expired worthless on January 17th, but look at how poorly timed this was. January 17th was literally the last day before the stock rocketed 70% over the next month. Including his unrealized gain on his shares, he's down about $8,000 or 40%, which isn't as bad as some of the others on this list, but you have to remember this was funded with a line of credit. He hasn't given us an update post just yet, but he said he was holding until it hit $8. Yeah, let's just hope he's able to pay back that loan. When living in uncertain times, hedging your bets can be a wise move. And with platforms like Kalshi, you can trade on real-world events and can unironically use the platform to hedge the positions you have in your stock portfolio. Kalshi is the first legal platform in the US where people can trade on events in all 50 states. You can trade on things like whether or not the Fed will raise interest rates this month, when Trump will end his tariffs against a certain country, and if you're really going for a wild card, on whether or not Elon will rejoin the Trump administration. Kalshi gives you an interactive chart that lets you see how the odds of a given event have changed over time, which is honestly kinda just cool to see even if you're not gonna place a trade on it. And if you weren't already aware, even Robinhood has partnered with Kalshi. On top of this, the first 500 people who sign up using the link down below in the description will get a free $10 credit after placing their first trade. So why not sign up and see what you can do with your bonus? Hurley53017 is a man who wanted to double his net worth, but in the process of trying to do so, ended up soiling his account. Over the past 3 years, Hurley's been sharing some of his 5-figure gains to WallStreetBets. His Reddit history doesn't look too shabby, but on March 26th, he made a post to the Fire subreddit that shows he was ready to turn things up a notch. He wanted to know how he could turn $2.5 million into $5 mil. He's 35 years old and wants to retire ASAP. Users would give him advice in the comments. Wait 7 years with the $2.5 million in an index fund. Hurley didn't want this boring advice though. Exactly 1 week later, he YOLO'd $142K into SPY calls that expired the next day. He was already up $25K, but he decided to push his luck and see how SPY would treat him the next day. SPY had a decent run, but it didn't reach the strike price of half of his calls, so whether or not he made a profit on these trades is up in the air. A day after this, Hurley YOLO'd another $120K into calls that expired a day later. His last trade wasn't wildly successful, but he knew that this time it would be different. I'm confident that SPY will hit $525 tomorrow. Who else is with me? Whoever was with him would be pretty happy at market open because the stock was trading at almost $524 a share. Hurley was up $308,000 on this trade and things were looking pretty good for him. Hurley did not want to sell though. He needed $5 million to retire and he wasn't going to reach that goal by settling for lousy 261% gains. Well, unfortunately for the bright-eyed investor, the upcoming jobs report had people on edge, and SPY dropped 2% right before the market closed. These calls were now way out of the money, and of course, they would expire worthless. If You Say So is someone who lost a pretty big amount of money and made the realization that the only reasonable course of action was to revenge trade to make it all back. Maybe not so successfully. On April 22nd, If You Say So was looking for his next golden goose trade that was gonna get him out of the $40,000 hole he was in. A couple hours into the trading day, he scooped up $70,000 worth of 0 DTE SPY puts. Pretty quickly, his puts went up about 5K, which was nice, but still a far cry from the $40,000 he wanted. He put his phone down and went to get some breakfast. Little did he know, this was a detrimental mistake. In just a few minutes, SPY jumped from $524 to $527. He put the Nvidia bytes down and opened his phone to realize that his $75,000 position was now only worth $20K. Instead of profiting $40,000, he lost $48,000. He said, "What in the actual F? I belong." The best part of it all was that he sold at literally the worst time to sell at throughout the whole day. F. The contract is up 1.6 now. I hate you guys. Instead of selling for $20K, he could have sold for nearly $90,000 if he held just an hour longer. Year to date, he's down $150K, and it doesn't exactly look like his chart is moving in the right direction either. White Lightning 096 is a user who tried to trade his way out of debt, but unfortunately, things didn't really go as planned. The story of White Lightning begins a year and a half ago at the end of 2023. He threw $5,000 into a company that he says he may or may not have had private knowledge of. After pulling a Nancy Pelosi, he felt like he was an absolute genius. If you have insider information, surely there's no way you could lose money. Except he did lose money. Only 1 month after making this trade, his shares became completely worthless because the company filed for bankruptcy. Fast forward a few months, his position at his workplace was eliminated and they had to let him go. Things quickly started to unravel because he couldn't find another job either. That $5K he invested was a good chunk of his savings, so he had to resort to swiping that credit card. He pretty quickly racked up about $12,000 in credit card debt and realized that he was gonna have to get his hands on some money stat. He decided, might as well start gambling. He used this same credit card to load up money on some sketchy online casino. He didn't ever make any huge deposits, only about $100 at a time. All of a sudden, he realized he spent over $4,000 on this site, and that's when he knew he was addicted. Regardless, he was actually starting to make some of his money back. That was until he started chasing his losses and ended up losing the whole shebang. Then, with perfect timing, the autopay feature on his credit card resumed and tried to charge the entire $16,000 balance all at once. White Lightning didn't have the money in his account, of course, so Amex canceled his card completely. This left him $16,000 in debt on this card and $3,000 on another. He sold his computers and anything else of significant value, but doesn't know how he's gonna pay his bills this month. Powerful Cry 4090 is a user who lost so much money that he is now sick to his stomach. His investing journey began about 3 years ago when he was buying stocks in a custodial account at 15 years old. He did a pretty good job, and by the time he was 18, he had an $18,000 portfolio that he accumulated from profitable investments and saving money. Besides this $18,000, he was also trading options in a Webull account that was in his mom's name. Given that he was now 18, that meant the Fidelity portfolio would be officially transferred to his name. Powerful Cry initially pledged to stay away from options with this money, but according to him, his high risk tolerance got the best of him. Ready to make some absolutely wicked trades, he took this $18K and bought a variety of in-the-money options. With Coinbase, Mara, Enphase, and Eli Lilly & Co., he was able to take his portfolio to $30K. Things were smooth sailing until he started aggressively buying Lilly calls that were out of the money. He was quickly hit with a $6,000 loss, so like all intelligent investors, he started revenge trading. He bought more Lilly calls that expired in only a day. Lilly stock fell about 2% the following few days, and his $30,000 portfolio was now only worth $11.4K. He moved on to Shopify calls and once again got gypped with these. He had $8,000 in his portfolio and knew that he needed to make a crazy trade to make all of his money back. He bought 2-day till expiration SLV calls that dropped his portfolio down to $1,100. On May 31st, he bought good old 0DTE SPY puts that were out of the money. And luckily for him, SPY fell 1%, which sent his portfolio to $10.3K. SPY fell all the way down to $518, but he didn't want to sell his puts yet because he was waiting for the stock to drop even lower. Powerful Cry waited for a 9-cent drop that unfortunately would never happen. SPY ended up rebounding and his $10.3 thousand portfolio once again dropped down to $2,700. He had been on an absolutely wild ride, but he still wasn't done yet. Eager to make his money back, he YOLO'd the whole enchilada on SPX puts that expired in only an hour. SPX kept rallying for the rest of the day, and his portfolio fell down to $601. The last latchkey kid, aka Sid Brody, is a user who's been making casual posts to WallStreetBets for years now. But on May 27th, he finally came clean about the dark past of his portfolio. Sid started trading right at the start of the pandemic. He started off pretty tame and would only get a few shares of whatever was popular at the time. This was until his newfound knowledge of metamaterial science. He found out that the company Metamaterial would be reverse merging with Torchlight. Sid had metamaterial fever and loaded up on shares that were only trading at 23 cents at the time. Sid was living as usual until his dad spilled the beans about his top secret portfolio. Sid's dad revealed that he had saved $16K sitting in a Voya financial account for him. Sid quickly linked this to an E-Trade account and kept loading up on Torchlight. Not too long after this, Torchlight flew up to $1 a share. This was nothing though, because the stock would eventually surpass $10 a share. Sid's once modest portfolio was now worth $460,000. Sid's dad told him that he better sell those shares if he knew it was good for him, but Sid told him he was still waiting for the merger. Also, the merger was happening on his birthday, so it seemed like things were meant to be. The merger wasn't all that it was cracked up to be though, because Sid's $460,000 portfolio would drop down to $360K the next day. The day after that, it would drop again to $260K. Long story short, Sid ended up holding the bag and kept his shares until they were only worth 16 cents a piece, which was less than what he bought them for. He transferred what he had left over to Robinhood, where he's now an avid options trader. He didn't have the hottest start and hasn't updated us since either, so hopefully things are going smooth for him. Serial Forehead Kisser is an options trading doctor who is in desperate need of help. Last summer, SFK made some pretty solid gains by getting in on the meme stock action. He sold for a $44,000 gain and was looking for his next trade opportunity. Unfortunately though, his next trades would not be as lucky as his first. He ended up falling $60K from his peak and $17K overall. SFK is 23 years old and has $100,000 of school debt since he's currently in a doctor program. He doesn't work since he studies while living at home. This was all the money he saved up working before he started school, so now he feels like he's at an all-time low. GXD Assassin would tell him that it's time to stop trading. Circa Muse is a user who set his $1 million fortune on fire. Circa Muse started getting buck wild back on July 10th. He only had $1,300 in his IRA, but he was ready to risk it all. After only 3 weeks of wildcard plays, his portfolio was sitting at an astounding $250,000 value. Circa Muse 200x'd his portfolio in less than a month, but the craziest part was that he wasn't even done yet. On Monday, August 5th, he returned to the subreddit to let us all know that he officially achieved his $1 million day. Carvana sent his portfolio flying by 1.1 mil in a day when his portfolio was only worth $1,300 not even a full month prior. He was now up to $1.5 million and honestly felt pretty numb by the situation. Circa Muse was set on continuing his streak, and surprisingly, he would lock in yet another crazy gain. Just kidding. He lost everything literally within 4 days. Circa Muse went from $1,300 to 1.5 mil back down to 23K in less than a month. He realizes he made a pretty big blunder and wishes he would have maxed out on QQQ shares instead. This money was in an IRA, so it's not like he would have been at an advantage to take it out early anyway. No Situation 2001 is a user who managed to lose his life savings at the young age of 16 years old. No Situation has posted to the Porsche subreddit, Fortnite competitive subreddit, and WallStreetBets. 2 days after posting a gain screenshot, he would hit us with this monstrosity. In his Robinhood portfolio, he has lost over $7,700. It doesn't end there though, because he says he also lost another $700 the week after that. No Situation even had to sell all his Pokemon to fund this trade. He's still young, so hopefully he learns from this and invests his money into safe ETFs in the future. Spread Open SUSE is someone who shared a now deleted screenshot from another subreddit. Woke up to my 21-year-old female landlord and police enforcing eviction. 24-year-old boyfriend didn't tell me he didn't pay rent. Seems like he lost everything on crypto and meme stocks, and I'm at a loss of what to do. Although it's fun to joke around with others in WallStreetBets, this particular story is no laughing matter. The original poster deleted her post, and her username is blacked out, so for the sake of this story, we'll refer to her as Emma. As previously stated, Emma woke up to an unpleasant surprise. After finding out her boyfriend failed to pay the rent, she decided it was time to do some investigating. Luckily enough, her boyfriend used the same username on all social media platforms, so it wasn't really hard to find him online. Emma's boyfriend would tell her that he was going to work, when in reality, he would just chat with others on Discord and Reddit. He said that he was gonna make quote-unquote wife-changing money soon. Emma's boyfriend would write due diligence on Twitter and Reddit and gained quite a bit of notoriety. However, Emma says that this due diligence was insane. He was someone who was studying children's books to look for supposed clues on upcoming days. Before Thanksgiving, he told Emma that he lost his job, when in reality, he really quit and put his life savings into crypto altcoins. He then told Emma that he was going to a job interview in Florida. This might sound like a step in the right direction, but it was just another lie. He was actually going to a meme stock convention that would end up costing them $1,800 collectively. On top of all this, Emma would find out that he would post rude comments about her online. This is all just a really messed up story, and it gets even crazier knowing that he's likely somewhere still making posts on Reddit. Mixmaster Meat 1 is someone who ended up taking his investing journey a bit too far. Mixmaster Meat has supposedly always wanted to be a day trader. Back in 7th grade, he was able to win his computer class stock competition by completely YOLOing his whole paper account into Sony stock. This strategy would carry on into his later years. Mixmaster Meat was now 30 years old and he was done paper trading. He was trading real money. In the summer of 2023, he says he had the bright idea to ask his girlfriend for $25,000. He said he wanted to put the money into a trading account so he could enable margin, but he told her that he would never actually trade with the money she gave him. He also threw in $5K of his own money to actually fund the trades he was gonna do. Things started off pretty good for Mixmaster Meat. By day trading SPY and Tesla options, he was able to go from $5K to $25,000. This boosted his confidence and made him feel like a quote-unquote master trader. Like every other master trader, this is when he began losing thousands of dollars per day. He got to the point where he lost $35K, with $10K of that being from his girlfriend. Mixmaster Meat was a bit shaken up, but he wasn't completely discouraged. With only $15K left, he decided to YOLO his whole portfolio on Tesla calls. Luckily for him, Elon Musk came through and took the value of his portfolio back to $30K. His girlfriend never even knew that he had briefly lost her money, but that didn't matter to him. He was back in the game. Being back in the game, he started to lose thousands of dollars yet again. Just before his portfolio came completely crashing down, he YOLO'd his whole portfolio into Target. This YOLO took his account to 6 figures in the matter of a day. Feeling overjoyed, he threw $30K into 0 DTE SPY options. He also took out enough to pay back the amount that his girlfriend initially lended him. This turned out to be a pretty smart idea because he would end up completely blowing his account. With $0 in his account, he made a decision that any master trader would make. He took out a high-interest personal loan to start day trading in a whole new account. He borrowed $25K and YOLO'd it on 0-day till expiration options. The master trader ended up destroying his account a second time, only this time it wasn't even with his own money. He now has to pay back $1,356 per month to pay off his debt. A year later, he hasn't posted any new screenshots of his portfolio, but he has posted about some issues with his tenant. Good to know he still has a home. Back on June 3rd, SDF It made his grand debut to WallStreetBets to let us know about his master plan. Bath & Body Works was set to report earnings the very next day, and SDF practically had insider info. SDF had been on paternity leave for 5 months. He used this as the perfect opportunity to do some makeshift market research with his newborn options trading baby. Every single day, he took his newborn baby to 3 different malls to scope out the Bath & Body Works stores for a couple hours. SDF would keep track of how many bags he saw people walking out with, and even walked inside to count how many items people had in their carts at times. After doing this for 124 days, he gathered some pretty solid data. He found that Bath & Body Works was a much livelier store than the other ones in the mall, and was doing similarly to Sephora. SDF concluded his thorough research and bought $20,000 worth of shares and $8,000 worth of calls that all expired by next week. With all of this research, there was no way things could backfire. But of course things backfired and the stock fell by more than 12% the following day. The company had beat expectations, but overall guidance was a bit rocky. A year later and no update, so it seems like he's done with his big time trades. User I Lost 1 Million is someone who has done just that. I Lost 1 Million learned about the stock market back in 2019. Things were all gravy until I Lost 1 Million learned about options in 2020. After scrolling through WallStreetBets, he became interested in the Bed Bath & Beyond stock. We all know now that the company is no longer with us, but I Lost 1 Million still had more money to trade with. He may not have made money with Bed Bath & Beyond, but he was now hooked on options trading. Flash forward 2 years, I Lost Money was running out of money to trade with, so he sold his house and car. You might be thinking that's bad enough, but he also maxed out credit cards, borrowed money from the bank and lenders, and also lied to friends and family to loan money from them as well. Cherry on top, he also says that he worked odd jobs that were shameful. His wife of 12 years had left him and took custody of the kids. I Lost 1 Million lost 1.03 mil, but worse than that, he lost his friends and loved ones. He cried for days on end and had to sleep on benches, under bridges, and in backyards apparently. After all of this commotion, you would think he's ready to give up options trading for good. But actually no, he's doing the exact opposite. He is absolutely determined that he will make his money back. He didn't lose everything due to his understanding of the markets. No, it was his ego, greed, and lack of discipline. He spent the past 2 years dedicating himself to mastering every technical aspect of the market. Without wasting any time, he took the $25K he saved up and quickly made $13.4K trading SPY and $2.7K trading futures. After a few more days of trading, he took his Robinhood portfolio up to $55K. He posted some more of his positions, but hasn't updated us since October 10th, so not sure if he ever made that million back. Elon I Love You is a user who wanted to live and die by the YOLO. Before getting active on WallStreetBets, Elon I Love You posted on the Borrow and Prize Picks subreddits, which is a pretty dangerous combination. Towards the start of November, he boldly threw $990 into Tesla calls, which was all that he had in his portfolio. Luckily, Tesla was steamrolling its way to the moon at the start of November, and Elon I Love You's portfolio bounced all the way up to 50K. Most sensible people would take their 50x gain and have a good Thanksgiving dinner, but Elon I Love You did not want to take this route. Only one day after 50xing his money, he threw $30,000 into out-of-the-money Coinbase calls. This was a trade so risky that even the WallStreetBets mods were clowning on him. In a strange turn of events, Elon I Love You would get the last laugh and prove everyone wrong. On Monday, November 11th, Coinbase jumped 19.7%. His calls were now worth $386K, and that's still after he took $20,000 out of his portfolio as a safety cushion. Elon I Love You wasn't content with going from $1K to $400,000. He wanted that milli. After taking $100,000 out of his Robinhood portfolio as another safety cushion, he was ready for his next big YOLO again. Only a day after his crazy Coinbase gain, he threw $155K into way out of the money MicroStrategy calls that expired in 3 days. He stayed silent, and it seemed like nothing really ever happened with this play. That was until he made a grand return on November 19th. He spent $145K on even more MicroStrategy calls, and he was already up 85.5% for the day. He made $450,000 in profit in one single day, which is just unbelievable considering he started with only $1K. With $500,000, he still was not ready to walk away. He threw the whole enchilada back into even more calls on the company. The next day, he opened up his Robinhood portfolio and was absolutely delighted to see $1 million in his account. The stock price started dropping right after that, and he scrambled to sell as quickly as he could. After it was all said and done, he now had $826K in his account. After achieving this juicy 1000x, Elon I Love You reflects on how he was borrowing money from strangers on the internet just 7 months ago. But he still wasn't ready to give up yet. On November 21st, he went back to his roots and threw $723K into out-of-the-money Tesla calls. Tesla wasn't really moving the way he wanted it to, and he woke up the next day down $111K. He was not ready to cut his losses. He left a message letting us know that he was going full degen mode. Apparently, 1000x was still not degenning to the max, and he clearly wanted more. A higher power must have heard this rant, because just about an hour later, his account hit 1.2 mil. He waited a bit to sell, but still walked away with $1.03 million. After locking in his $1 million, surely he was done. But obviously, by now, we all know that this isn't the case. He threw over $950K into out-of-the-money MicroStrategy calls that expired only a week later. Elon I Love You woke up to a diabolical portfolio on Monday. MicroStrategy was down, and his portfolio was now sitting at only $553K, which is half of what it was before the weekend. He then bought $375K worth of out-of-the-money SPY calls that expired in 2 days. This put him down another $50K, but he refused to give up on his dream. On Tuesday, November 26th, he woke up to a portfolio that was worth $238K, pretty much a fourth of what he had last week. He needed to 4x his money to make it all back, but he was ready to do that. He threw most of what he had left into out-of-the-money Amazon calls that expired in 3 days. Amazon rose over 3% that day, and he actually made nearly $114K, which was a 47% daily gain for his portfolio. Now at $352K, Elon I Love You said, "If this blows up, I will take the $60K I have left and call it a year. But until then, I will remain transparent about my wins." On Thanksgiving Eve, his portfolio quickly dropped to $150K. He sold his Amazon calls, loaded up on Tesla puts, and recouped $100K. Still down $46K for the day, he says he's gonna eat some turkey and chill until next week. This would not be the case though, as he came back only 4 hours later with yet another update. He just bought $220K worth of MicroStrategy calls. If the stock didn't jump 31% in the following week and a half, he would be losing money on this play. A week later, he came back with grim news. He only had $23K left in his portfolio, and he was down $213K over the past week. He says he has $150K left in his checking, but users on the subreddit questioned if this was really true. Either way, he was set on throwing the 20k in his portfolio on one last final hurrah. His final play was Palantir Weeklies at the $80 strike price. Later that night, he knew something was wrong. Palantir was not the right play. If he was gonna go out, he was gonna go out with the stock of his dreams. That being said, on December 4th, he threw 17k into 2-day till expiration calls on the stock. MicroStrategy was $105 short of his strike price, and if he held, his calls of course would have expired worthless. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you think I missed anyone.